say yes. Don't deny what you feel.
The first year, that definitely didn't work out. In good faith, I attempted another time, which was last year, and definitely didn't work out again. I'm pregnant, and I remember telling her, and she said, "Oh, I kind of figured it out on my own." I was like, okay. Thanks.
If you were into R&B in the 90s and 2000s, you've definitely heard of Floetry. Songs like Say Yes and Floetic had us all hooked, but behind the hits, things weren't all sunshine and roses. These two went from being besties to rivals with personal drama and work beefs, making their journey anything but easy. Here's the scoop on how they made magic together and why they eventually went their separate ways.
Say yes. Don't deny what you feel.
Floetry, also known as Natalie Stewart, the Flosist, and Marsha Ambrosius, the songstress, teamed up in the late 90s, bringing their British R&B sound stateside. Both artists felt like the US was the perfect place to dive into their creative dreams, so they packed up and made the move, ready to take their music to the next level. Natalie Stewart came from a Jamaican family, but she was born in Germany and moved around a ton thanks to her dad's military job. All that hopping around gave her a mix of cultures and music to soak up. Meanwhile, Marsha Ambrosius was raised in Liverpool, England, where music was basically in her DNA. Her mom was a singer, and her dad played a bunch of instruments, so Marsha was surrounded by music from day one. The two first crossed paths as preteens on a London basketball court. They started off as rivals, but once they figured out they both had a thing for music and poetry, they clicked. Their friendship really took off when Marsha, who was working on a song, brought Natalie in to add some of her poetry magic. Mixing Marsha's smooth melodies with Natalie's spoken word style set the stage for Floetry's one-of-a-kind sound. Their collab turned into pure musical fire, mixing soulful vibes with deep poetic lyrics that hit audiences right in the feels. Floetry's unique style had critics talking and fans locked in, securing their spot as R&B and neo-soul favorites. But as always, with fame comes complications.
Now, it was Floetry. When's the last time you guys spoke? A lot of people asked for Floetry album.
The very last day of last year's reunion tour.
Marsha spoke on the tough times that led to Floetry splitting up. She shared that Natalie Stewart was dealing with some heavy personal stuff, especially a toxic relationship, which put a strain on their duo. Natalie's struggles with her mental health during that rough patch made it hard for them to keep their music partnership going. Things got messy when Natalie brought her boyfriend on as their manager. This move led to serious drama, especially with solo deals causing friction. It only got worse when rumors started flying that management was all about boosting Marsha's solo career, leaving Floetry's duo act in the dust. Natalie felt like she was getting pushed out of gigs, which drove an even bigger wedge between them. All this tension eventually led to Floetry's breakup, with both artists heading off to do their own thing.
Yeah, we did 2 years back-to-back of a reunion, and on my end, it was absolutely to reconcile, forgive, bury the hatchet, and clean slate everything.
Marsha looked back on the last time she and the Flosist actually had a real conversation, which was during the final day of their reunion tour. After 2 whole years of trying to patch things up, she'd come into it hoping they could hit reset and maybe move forward, mainly for the fans. But even with her best efforts, it was clear both times that it wasn't going to work. She admitted she'd been holding back in her previous interviews, not really saying how it was, but the truth, they'd just drifted apart, and she finally had to come to terms with that.
The first year, that definitely didn't work out. In good faith, I attempted another time, which was last year, and definitely didn't work out again.
During the second tour, Marsha found out she was pregnant, and it totally threw a curveball into everything. She kept it on the down low until the last week, not wanting to share too early. But when she finally broke the news, she was seriously let down by how little excitement her former bandmate showed. Things hit rock bottom when Marsha caught people smoking on the tour bus, even though she was dealing with a high-risk pregnancy.
So It's a high-risk pregnancy, as told by my doctor, so I'm already cautious.
That was the final straw for her. At that point, she knew for sure that trying to fix things just wasn't in the cards. She could feel that her presence was digging up old issues for her ex-bandmate, and she realized there was no going back.
I'm pregnant, and I remember telling her, and she said, "Oh, I kind of figured it out on my own." I was like, "Okay, thanks."
Looking back at the first year of the reunion tour, Marsha revealed that's when she met her fiancé. Even though she and the Floetry were basically doing their own thing and hadn't spoken in ages, her fiancé had been brought in to handle the logistics for her bandmate, who was still on the team at that time. But the tour? Drama central. Things took a turn when a locker room chat between the band members got real crude, and Marsha overheard some comments that were straight up disrespectful. What really stung, though, was when her former partner jumped in and kind of backed up the harsh comments. For Marsha, that was the moment she realized the loyalty was gone. She kept going for the fans. But deep down, she knew her bandmate wasn't on her side anymore. Back to 2006, Marsha admitted that she and the Floetry definitely had their petty moments, but there was way more going on beneath the surface. At that time, her bandmate was stuck in an abusive relationship, and Marsha was there for her as a close friend, feeling like she had to support her through everything. But trying to be the shoulder to lean on took its toll on Marsha, especially when rumors about her started spreading. For years, their friendship was all about hiding the messy stuff and dealing with some serious emotional baggage, which just made everything even more complicated. When the Floetry reunion was announced, it was clear that everyone had already picked a side. Marsha admitted that there were so many different versions of what went down, and each of them was holding on to their own truth. Even though she was trying to move on, meeting her fiancé, getting ready to start a family, Marsha finally accepted that her and the Floetry just weren't going to see things the same way. She came to terms with the fact that while she'll always appreciate the music they made together, she was done with trying to rekindle what they had. Marsha also opened up about her brief time with Amanda Seales, who briefly joined Floetry. Things got super tense behind the scenes, almost turning into a full-blown fight when all the reunion drama hit a boiling point. But despite all that, Marsha doesn't hold any grudges against Amanda. She respects her hustle and all the success she's had. Now, Marsha's focused on her future, stepping into her new role as a mom-to-be and wife, letting go of all the past drama and just wishing her old bandmate well. Such a sad ending to a duo that had so much potential. Like I said earlier, Marsha and Natalie first crossed paths on the basketball courts in London. They went from low-key rivals to besties, bonding over their shared love for music and poetry. Their first collab, Marsha hit up Natalie to add some poetry to a song she was working on, Fantasize. A few months later, Natalie brought Marsha on stage to perform it, and the energy was unreal. People were literally crying during the show. By '97, the duo was writing tracks together non-stop and performing at every spot in London. After a few years, they packed up and moved to the US, starting in Atlanta before landing in Philly, where their big break happened. Since then, they've written for some huge names like Jill Scott, Drew Hill's Jazz, Bilal, and even Michael Jackson. Marsha wrote MJ's hit Butterflies in 2002.
Keep me wondering why.
Talk about making moves. Then Floetry signed with DreamWorks and dropped their debut album Floetic, which had bangers like Floetic, Say Yes, and Getting Late. Say Yes was a huge hit, staying on the Hot 100 for 20 weeks and hitting number 24. The album was also released in the UK with extra tracks, including a collab with British artist Sebastian Rogers. Oh, and their song Where's the Love was even featured in Bringing Down the House. Critics couldn't get enough of their smooth, soulful sound that mixed funk and R&B. Talk about representing the UK R&B scene. In 2003, they dropped a live album, Floetry, which had a CD and DVD, plus a track with Mos Def, Wanna Be Where You Are. They didn't slow down either, starting work on their second studio album right after. By 2005, they were touring with legends like Jill Scott, Erykah Badu, and Queen Latifah, and dropped their final album, Floetry. It debuted super strong, making it to number 7 on the Billboard 200 and number 2 on the top R&B chart, selling over 77,000 copies in its first week. Floetry also had the hit Superstar featuring Common. R&B duos breaking up? Yeah, it happens more than we'd like. Take H-Town, for example. H-Town was the 90s R&B group that had us all in our feelings with tracks like Knockin' Da Boots and Emotions. Made up of twin brothers Dino and Shazam Connor, plus their boy G.I. Jackson, they were all about those smooth harmonies and love songs. But as the fame hit, the pressure started messing with their flow. Then, tragedy struck when Dino passed away in a car accident in 2003, leaving a huge hole in the group and their fans' hearts. His death changed everything for H-Town, putting them on pause and totally shifting the direction of their career. Then there's K-Ci and JoJo.
Sweeter than you, sweeter than you.
K-Ci and JoJo, the Haley brothers, first made their mark in the iconic R&B group Jodeci, serving up those smooth, soulful jams that had everyone hooked in the 90s. Jodeci's hits like Forever My Lady and Come and Talk to Me made them legends, but behind the scenes, things weren't all smooth sailing. When the duo went solo, K-Ci and JoJo dropped emotional bangers like All My Life that had us all in our feelings. But their personal struggles, mainly dealing with addiction and health issues, put a serious dent in their careers. The battles with substance abuse slowed down their grind and led to canceled shows and missed opportunities. Despite the setbacks, their music still hit home for fans, though their journey has been anything but easy.
They shook, 'cause ain't no such things as halfway crooks. Scared to death and scared to look.
Mobb Deep, the legendary duo made up of Prodigy and Havoc, changed the game with their dark, hard-hitting sound. Their albums like the infamous and Hell on Earth are still considered some of the most influential in hip-hop, with gritty beats and raw street lyricism that had everyone nodding their heads. But things weren't always smooth between the two. In 2012, they hit a rough patch and briefly split when Havoc went off on Twitter, throwing shade at Prodigy. There was some drama around whether Havoc's account had been hacked, but whatever went down, it was clear that they weren't on the best terms. Thankfully, the duo squashed their beef, got back together, and started making music again, much to the relief of their fans. Sadly, Prodigy passed away in 2017 after battling sickle cell anemia for most of his life, marking the end of Mobb Deep. But their legacy lives on, and they'll always be remembered for their huge impact on hip-hop. And that's it for today. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get more from us.